My name is Remy Gomez. I am 40 years old from Tomah, Wisconsin, and I am the Democratic candidate for the Wisconsin 70th District, which is a big old district comprising of five counties. So I'm from Tomah, also where my opponent is from, where me and my girlfriend were born and raised, currently live, raising our 3 kids. I sit on our Monroe County Board of Supervisors in my second term. I'm currently the chairman of the Property and Maintenance Committee, and I sit on Public Safety and Justice, and then our Sanitation also. And then prior to that, City Council of Tomah, and various committees there as well. You know, being a lifelong Wisconsinite, abortion is something that's been a topic here, and you know, it's always been a good majority that you know, doesn't want to see anything change, doesn't want to see it discussed, doesn't think that it's the choice of a politician or the general public. Recent polling suggests that still holds true, even a little stronger than it used to, and I agree completely. No matter how big the doctor's office is, that the wife or the daughter or the mother or the grandmother or the aunt is in with their doctor and they choose or not choose this course, there's no room for me as a politician. There's no room for your neighbor. There's no reason, because they don't know where you're at. They don't know how you got there. They didn't know what situation it was. But for me, I'm pro-choice, hoping that the outcome is life. But knowing that ultimately, regardless if elected or not, it's not my decision. That is a personal choice that a woman gets to make, and you know, ultimately, abortion, healthcare rights, that is healthcare. So I would go with the majority, and I would codify it, is what I would actually do. I would codify it along with same-sex marriage. I would codify both of those immediately, because those are not decisions that are made by the general public or made by a politician. Those are personal decisions. You know, I'd go as far as I'd co-sponsor the bill. To think that you can draw your own lines regardless of who's in charge. You know, to get a little bit of context, we went through redistricting in Monroe County, so we had to draw our county lines. We did have elected officials on the board. We had a couple, but the vast majority, I think 80% of the participants, and it was a big committee and a big effort, was done by the general public. And that's because you get the unbiased issues. You know, you don't look at where people are, you look at where population grows, and then try to get a good representation. I'm in a gigantic central. I go from, you know, I-90, where I live literally on I-90, and I'm sitting here, you know, not even all the way in the northern or eastern part of my district. So to say that, you know, I love it because I get to meet people all over. But to say that every candidate is going to have the time to get up here and do this, you know, it's, as you can see, I'm the one sitting here. I'm willing to do the work. But to answer the question, you know, I would leave it in the hands of the majority of unelected officials to draw our maps. You know, so I have a lot of friends that live outside the state. I kind of explain how our legislature works. You know, it's different than everybody else's, kind of, in the fact, or at least not everybody else's, but the surrounding states, in the fact that they vote in a caucus. You know, they don't vote on a per piece legislation. You know, as a Republican, you're with it or you're not, and that's sad because that takes bipartisanship out of it. So for me, I would simply have the discussion. The amount of democratically authored pieces of legislation that got a public hearing is absurd. It is childish. I don't care if you agree or not, you got to have the discussion, because that's the only way you're going to get to action. To think that Republicans or Democrats have all the answers is absurd. You get together, listen to experts, and that's the part I enjoy, the grassroots part, getting to the committee. But when you're not even getting it heard at the committee level, that's childish. We need to change that. So first off, that's what I do, is I try to get more of a bipartisan, even though I'm not sure that exists here in Wisconsin right now, but worth an effort. As a voter and as an elected official, the Wisconsin Election Commission does an excellent job. They are thorough in everything they have done in every election I've participated in, every one I've been on the ballot, including this one. I don't think the general public really understands how much you have to do and how many boxes there are to check to even be on a ballot. So it's nothing that's changed drastically over the years. We still have absentee ballots. We still have early voters. Those are great resources that we can use for various reasons. So the way it sits right now, I would leave it. These are our local municipalities and county clerks that are counting these folks. These aren't grand conspirators that are looking for it. They have nothing to gain with anything there. Prison time to get one person in there. I'm pretty sure this is directed towards the last election, but if you look at rigging an election, you're going to tell me that we're going to leave Mitch McConnell in there? I mean, you don't really get to pick and choose. So record number of voters turned out last year on both sides. That's what we want. The public needs to get out and vote. Well, climate change, some people will say that it's a hoax. It's not a hoax, folks. It's right here, and it happens, all the time. We many contributors to it. Personally, what I'd like to see us shift to is a little more of solar energy, and I think, Mandela Barnes. I hate to give him a shout out. Love the guy, but he had a great point. Why can't we get factories back here that are producing those right here? In the 70th, I mean, if we look at the industries that have went out of business in the local area and the already available need for these, we can build them right here in the middle. We can ship them out just like we do everything else, but we got to be willing to do that. But for me locally, southern half of Monroe County, we have flooding issues. We have we have countless floods throughout the Kickapoo Valley. Wetlands are important. Keeping our building and our zoning in and out of floodplains is important. But then doing the upstream mitigation, we got some great conservationists all across the area. I am not an expert on climate change, but there are some brilliant people out there. And my job as a politician, and I think every job as an elected official, is to listen to the experts. Don't come knowing what you think you know. Be willing to learn something in ways we can change it. So, I would, again, it goes back to discussion. If you're not having these discussions at the level, and then probably what I would do first is clean up the DNR. Our DNR is a mess. We need to get a wrangle on that, because they're a big player in what we could do here for our climate efforts. So. So there's two things I never thought I would have to ever campaign on or have this as a question, but they're both relevant. One was women's rights or abortion, and the second is clean water. So initially what we need to do is establish the right to clean water. not talk about it. Let's establish the right to clean water. Let's get that in our Wisconsin Constitution, and let's bind every form of government going forward to that initiative. And that's, Evers has a great plan. Let's get some more well water testing. So we've done that in Monroe County. We've also established, they changed the word of right, but supporting the right to clean water in there. So as our county going forward, we actually have a resolution going, an active resolution. So anything going forward, that binds us to it. Now, what does that mean? Like I said, I represent 5 counties. La Crosse County, Monroe County, Jackson County, and Wood County all have, water quality issues. And I would bet if I got up into Portage County and started discussing in the top tip up there where I represent, up by Sharon, I would get probably the same answer, because we're at a time where we've ignored climate change, we've ignored, we've frac mines, we've ignored numerous things that we had warning signs for what was going to happen, and the water quality and PFAS specifically is absurd. So really tracking it where we are. French Island, unfortunately, in La Crosse County is not in my area, but that's one that's hitting hard. What can we do? Again, establishing the right, and then it's going to be a different solution in each place. Let's fund the project at the local level, because that's where the real change can happen. To think that a governor or a congressman, but let's fund those local counties and municipalities properly. Let them handle it the way that they see fit. Well, they actually tie into each other. You improve student performance by giving the staff and the teachers proper resources to be able to teach the students, and that's in our public schools, folks. Our tax dollars have continually went to more and more into the parochial school, into the voucher system, and that's wrong, folks. We need to fund our public schools, and I probably even expanded into the 3K and 4K efforts. So as far as funding it, we need to go backwards, not continue to go where we were there. We need to go back to the system that we had in place where public schools were funded properly. Specifically, what can we do? We can undo Act 10. Act 10 was a killer. We're 12 years later, folks, and we're seeing across the board, Democrats and Republicans agree on this. It was not a good piece of legislation for numerous reasons, but our public schools got hit the hardest. And when you start to talk about student performance, again, let's get the teachers in there. Let's just not take anybody off the street. Let's get our qualified teachers in there. Let's take care of them, and let's leave them in the same system for a while. We have a lot of job hoppers in this, and rightfully so, because there's more funding in X school as opposed to X school. Well, if we gave equal in there, specifically in Tomah, Wisconsin, we're going to have a referendum coming up here similar to what our neighbor Sparta had last year. Unfortunately, they turned it down last year. That's their choice. It shouldn't be there, folks. We have a $5 billion state surplus. We need to up the per pupil rate that we're getting. I believe it's about 10K, maybe a little over in my area. That's not enough. We need to assess it probably biannually. Every time, let's take a hard look at it. What is inflation doing? What is cost of living doing? That needs to equate into our school districts, because again, we need to give the resources for the local levels, in this case, the school boards and administrators, to do their job. And number one, we need to take care of our teachers. And you can't do that when you continually dip into the voucher program. They have tuitions for a reason. If they need more funds, folks, what do? Raise your tuition. Or maybe that's not the route that you need to go. Maybe there's not such demand for it. But the public tax system is for public schools and public education. So specifically our special needs. When we get into special needs, that's always the one that's hit the hardest. It's difficult to fund. We need more there. And we need more across the board, folks. So if we want to talk performance, let's give the schools, school districts, and school boards and the teachers the ability to do so. Well, all of them really that we've discussed here hit right across here. You know, there's a lot of things on the ballot, and you hear that a lot up and down the ballot, but there always is, folks. And these ones happen to hit across the board. There's women across the board. There's women all through the 70th that are made to second-class citizens right now. Think about that for a second. My daughter's 20 years old. She has less rights than her mother, who is 40 years old, had at her same time. We're going backwards in time here, folks. I mean, this is pre-Civil War that we're talking about there. But what do we have here that's not facing everyone else in the state? You know, we can focus on the 70th, but how do we make the 70th work with the 69th, which works with the 72nd, which, you know, it's a big picture here. But if we can take care of our issues right here at home, you know, we make the 70th better. And what are they? You know, funding our public schools, taking care of our elderly. You know, what can we do for our aging population? You know, baby boomers are coming up here. We can look to the future as to what we're going to be facing. Right now is, you know, microcosm of what we're going to see in the next 10 years, and we're already behind. So how can we help the local levels prepare for this impact? But then, yeah, it all starts with education. Well, outside of all those topics, you know, there's a lot of big issues. There's a lot of issues that we're facing as a state and as a country, and democracy is a huge one here. So the integrity of our election was questioned last year, our last election cycle, and to me that hits home because this is something that separates us from everybody else. You know, you may not like the outcome. You know, a good chunk of the country did not like the outcome, but our elections are fair. And what we're having right now is we're having a debate about something that happened 2 years ago so that it can divide us. And then you're going to throw abortion in there so that they can divide us a little bit more. I could tell you, as the representative for the 70th and all through this campaign, you'll never hear me speak about my opponent. If I have to speak about my opponent and throw them under the bus, maybe I'm not the right person for the job. And I know there's a lot of that in national politics, and being a politician is a naughty word, but to me, being a politician is representing my area, and I've done that at the city council level, and then I moved on to the county board level, and each and every time I brought discussion to the table. I brought a free and open forum and an accepted forum. So what would I do differently and what makes me better than my candidate? You know, I'll leave that up to you folks, but I can tell you that I'll be there every single day earning the paycheck that we have instead of not being there at all since March. You know, there's things that we need to discuss. So as a representative for the 70th, as a fellow voter in the 70th, I ask for your vote. But at the same time, I want you to educate yourself on your opponents or on your candidates. Get to know them. Look at the issues. If you're an issue voter, there's some huge issues here, folks. You know, I challenge you not to just vote party line on either way. Be open and honest with yourself in the process, because again, this is what separates us, folks. If we don't like the way things are going, we need to change the faces of the people that we're sending to Madison and Washington. You know, so right now, at the state level, we have a bog down, and that stops everything. So when the assembly doesn't talk, that means we don't do anything, folks. Again, $5 billion sitting there. We have a great governor. I'm glad he's there. Tony Evers needs to be reelected at minimum for our state to survive, because without him, you know, we're gonna go backwards, folks. We're gonna end up being in a spot where, you know, it doesn't represent the purple that Wisconsin's always been. We've been a progressive state. You know, we've led the nation in numerous things. You know, we've always been an example, and now people look at us and, you know, you're the state that can't agree on anything. So for me, I want to bring integrity back to the Wisconsin State Assembly, and I'm gonna start right here with the 70th district. Thank you.